box. So now I see position here. Chris. Daddy, wewe simama hivyo. Unasimama simama pale kando basi. Wewe wenye kaba mbele muiname. Inama. Daddy songa nyuma. Wewe kama no, we don't receive.
Because the thing is, we also want it to be covered. Because they want to hear the voice of Maru, if you can request, because hatutaki hata sisi kuingiza watu wote. Kila mtu everyone wants to cover this. So just allow two representatives to achukue on behalf. They may not want that. The easiest way is can go. All of these guys want to cover. Everyone will want to go in. Kuja chukua kuja chukua hapa nje. Kila mtu anataka kuingia. Watu wawili hata the clerk and the speaker. Ama kwa busy kuongeza ama kwa busy kuja chukua. Hata kitu chini. Relax. What we are trying to do is to communicate amongst ourselves. Ndio tukue order kidogo. Kila mtu akiongea hatutasikizana. So the main reason ndio hiyo, lakini sasa tumewaambia watutumie either speaker na clerk wakuje wachukue petition. Hatutaingia ndani. Yes. So that's what we are saying. So ametuambia tuwapatie dakika 5. So can we wait? Tuwe watulivu hizo dakika 5. Okay. Tunasema akuje mwenyewe. So tuwapatie 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Buta nyuma. Kama ni mimi niko ndani nazo tumeanza masomo yote.
Anything that is done in this country, praise the fourth estate is given all the support. And we must say pole for what happened in the demonstration. We have seen elements of where police brutality has been meted on the press and the media personalities. This is wrong as a country. We are here to receive your petition, and I want to say that all that you are bringing to us, we will respond, that a speaker will respond officially and speak on the matters of real business.
Even as we reiterate that, I am a victim of restriction to Parliament as we speak. My name is Seth Olale, I'm a Citizen TV reporter, and as we speak I've been barred from the precincts of Parliament because it is believed that I showed or I relayed information that was live streamed to the entire public. But when you say that we have a right to relay information, and yet you have restricted and you have banned journalists from accessing the precincts of Parliament, isn't it contradictory to what the Speaker stands for?
I want to say that the presence of Parliament doesn't include where we are. You need to understand that this is a parliamentary square. All these parties are presence of Parliament. What Parliament is doing, by the way, I need to tell you that we are already working on a budget to make sure that we have a media center that is well built, a media center that will respond to the needs and requirements of this country. Because what you guys do is critical for this country. I want to say this, on behalf of Parliament, we underscore the importance of media. You guys have been laying all the information that we have at Parliament. We will not restrict media into Parliament. What we are saying is just to enhance what you guys are doing, enhance the relations and create a conducive environment.
And the most importantly, we know very well that the State University of New York supported the construction of media center here. We want that center to be accessed by journalists. That is not even the government money. That is only Parliament money. That media center was constructed using State University of New York project. Number 3, we want media to access press gallery.
Yes.
We don't have media that is not accessing press gallery. Which kind of democracy is that? We know that we got our name for the state from the floor of Parliament. And Manbak was addressing the House of Commons. He said, and that lies for this state, which actually is the greatest of all. Why are you blocking media from access to the press gallery? That is unacceptable. The bare minimum is we must use the media center and we must access press gallery.
Irreducible.
Madam Speaker, there is also, when you look at the bottom up, you know, the Kenya Kwanza is talking about the bottom up. And looking at fertilizers, Madam Speaker, this is something where the farmers are going to get subsidized fertilizers, and therefore we are going to get a bumper harvest for our people. We have the increase of salaries for police. Madam Speaker, most of us, even members of parliament, we all know that our security suffers a lot. I was privileged to have been married by one gentleman who was an inspector of police. That is the late Inspector Joshua Tongei. Some of us know how much these people earn. The peanut salaries the policemen earn, Madam Speaker, it's heartbreaking. And therefore, when we get some increment for them, Madam Speaker, these people do a lot. They protect us while we are sleeping. They are in our borders, protecting the country, and they go through a lot of pressure and stress, while their families cannot afford even to put food on the table, leave alone their children to go to school. Madam Speaker, this is something which is encouraging, and I support this budget because of that, coming from that background of being married by a policeman. Madam Speaker, there is also the issue of coolants. I was privileged one time when the president visited my county, and he had promised to give me 30 coolants. Madam Speaker, this will go across for all women to get coolants, and they can afford to take their milk for preservation, and therefore, even the increase of money, around 500 million to KCC, so that women can get payment of 50 shillings per bottle, because it's only in Kenya where we get a bottle of water being more expensive than a bottle of milk. Madam Speaker, I support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tonkei, and thank you also for taking that opportunity to reflect on the experiences of police officers, of course, citing your later husband. Honorable members, I would like to give this opportunity to the Honorable Esuda. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, and I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the chair of the Committee of Budget and Appropriations Committee and the entire committee for putting in a lot of hours to ensure that by the time we are opening the House, this is only day 2, we have the supplementary estimates 1 presented in this House, Madam Speaker. I want to just make a few points. First is that as a country, we are actually experiencing extraordinary times, and this calls for extraordinary measures for us as a country, Madam Speaker, and that is why for the first time in the history of Kenya, we have supplementary estimate 1, even before we start implementing the budget that we passed before we went for recess, Madam Speaker. And this was occasioned by Kenyans speaking to us as the leadership, from the topmost leadership, the president, all the way to us in the National Assembly and the Senate, all the way to the counties, and even to the members of the county assemblies, Madam Speaker, by talking to us and telling us that, hey, we do not want to be overtaxed, and even as you tax us, we want to get value for our money. And that is why, Madam Speaker, His Excellency the President did not assent to the finance bill, and that is why, as a committee and as a House, we have revised and we have rationalized the budget to fit onto the shoe that we are wearing as a country, Madam Speaker. I want to say this, that as a committee, we have looked at the austerity measures. And Kenyans have again told us, as leaders, that do not cosmetically talk to us about austerity measures. By just saying that we have cut, we are seeing memos that there will be no travels, that there will be no tea, there will be no flowers. They actually want to see it happening, Madam Speaker. And so they do not want us to just say we won't travel, and then they find out that we sneaked out of the country and traveled. They want to see that when we say there is no travel by parastatal officers, by members of parliament, by the executive, we will exactly do that. Of course, there will be essential travels where, for example, our country, we have to give a country position, like to the Pan-African Parliament, to the IPU. There are areas that probably we must be there as a country, Madam Speaker. They also want to see that when we travel, there will be no excess baggage of persons who are not going to add value in that travel, Madam Speaker. For example, when we go for sports, you find that the people who are going to run or the people who are going to participate in the sports are not in the list. And then we have joy riders who first get the merchandise free, the ones who go there and enjoy themselves and go out and send photos and have a field day when they go for World Cup and things like that, Madam Speaker. Those are the things Kenyans have said we do not want to see, and as a house, we will be doing our proper oversight. Any executive member who is going to do that, we will not play any tribal card that that person comes from my county or that person comes from my area. We would rather lose our political seats rather than going against what Kenyans want, Madam Speaker. But quickly to the issues that are in the budget, which I am happy about. The budget committee and also the government, I must give them credit. They did not go, when we are doing the cuts, Madam Speaker, they did not touch so much on the things that touch directly on the common man. And I'm happy about that. For example, JSS, there was a lot of agitation, and we saw even the letter that Treasury had written to us before we went for recess, that if we reject the finance bill, they will not employ the JSS teachers. I thank the government and also the budget committee by ensuring that has not happened. The JSS teachers will be employed. Equalization fund, we have 8 billion, Madam Speaker. I'm happy also with this government that for the first time in every financial year, we are seeing that equalization fund is prioritized and the monies are also being disbursed. Also, Madam Speaker, school feeding program is there in this budget, Madam Speaker. Lastly, we are seeing hides and skins getting money, Madam Speaker. The other thing that Kenyans have talked about is about equity. We cannot only have money going to coffee sector, tea sector. Even the pastoralists of this country count. They also pay taxes, and I'm happy that there is money for skins and hides so that one of their economic sector can also get money. And for that reason, I do support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Mwago, Amos Mwago, member for Starehe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to weigh in on this matter. And on the onset, I want to congratulate the chairman for the budget committee on the recommendations on the budget, the budgetary cuts. I think this has come from the agitation that the public has meted on us as Parliament and on the government as a whole. And I think it is time now we think about the principle of the three arms of government, having the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. And I think in the view of the public, our arm of government is performing dismally and is purportedly being controlled by the executive, which we should be oversighting. I think that's an issue that we should bring that debate on the floor of the House and discuss our role as Parliament. What is our role as Parliament? Because we seem to have been overridden by the executive in our mandate to oversight it. I say so because even when you look at some of the areas that the budgetary cuts have been affected, some of the areas are issues that had been raised by the public and were addressed by the executive. When we are talking about the office of the First Lady, the Second Lady, and maybe the office of the wife of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, these are issues that were raised by the public and they were addressed by the executive, which are issues that we as Parliament should have looked into before these issues got to the public galore. I tend to think we also have missed on some of the priorities on the budget cuts, because what the Kenyans are saying, the exercise by government and state officers, there's a very big loophole in how money is spent in this government. The giant of corruption, that's why people are addressing the issues. They are saying those are the areas where we should have budgetary cuts. But it's so shameful that now that we didn't pass the finance bill, we've retorted to cutting budgets for very critical areas, like the chairman for health committee has just stated that there's a machine that was supposed to be bought by Kenyatta Hospital. that has to be forgone, but there are people still earning allowances, whereas such crucial machines have been affected by the lack of passing the finance bill. These are the issues that we should talk as parliaments. We need to prioritize what Kenyans need. We have to do the budgetary cuts in the areas that Kenyans do not seem to feel like there are more urgent issues, but those critical areas, that's where we should effect these budgetary cuts. The second thing is the issue of RDS and the duplication of duties among very many government agencies. It is time that in our different committees, there are so many agencies that tend to duplicate duties and people earning so much money, doing the same thing the same way. And this is why I really want to agree with the chairman for budget committee when he talks about when you have different engineers from all road departments in a certain constituency earning money for the same work. These are some of the areas that we should look at. We saw when the county governments, after the election, the county government of Kisii, the governor Simba Arati went ahead and really did really came out and brought a huge number of workers who are ghost workers. I believe if such a small county as Kisii County had so many ghost workers, it is time to audit all the employees of the government so that we can know which employees are duplicating tasks so that we can address this issue of money going through the wrong hands. Also, we need to address the issue of the giant element in our budget, that is the recurrent expenditure. We need to see how productive is the recurrent expenditure. This money that we're spending on salaries, are we getting equal value in return from the amount that we're expending so that we can know where to cut on these budgets? We also have the issue of pending projects and affordable housing. We tend to introduce new projects, but we have so many projects that are pending. In my constituency alone, we have the Jivanji housing project, Pangani housing project, Sarai Point housing project that was launched by the president, but has not taken off. But you're still planning and actually allocating money for more development on affordable housing, whereas even the ones that had been started by the previous regime are not yet done. These are some of the issues that we need to look at. And these are issues that we need to address. And we really need to respect our middle class and the people who are paying taxes in the informal sectors. We cannot increase taxes on the imports in this country. And also
the Honorable Sylvanus Osoro, member for South Mogirango.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to support as I make my contribution in regard to the report by the Budget and Appropriation Committee, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are living in very interesting times, very, very interesting times, especially economically. It requires us, Honorable Speaker, to take a lot of measures, very, very many measures, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to live within our means, Honorable Speaker. In fact, even on personal life, members and even people in public service have been accused of living large. It's now about time that even as we talk about the national budget cuts, we also talk on budget cuts on even our personal homes and even our, way of life in terms of operations, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the challenge this country has had, though, is allowing ministries and departments to put in some very useless or avoidable things that can be avoided in the budget. And when I was watching yesterday's debate by the economic team on one of the mainstream media, Honorable Speaker, one person raised a very, very important issue, that you get a ministry or an office of government purchasing a bottle of water at a cost of 800 shillings, Honorable Speaker. And those are some of the questions that people are raising out there. That how is it that we sometimes want to talk about the budget cuts, or rather raising funds, when some people live large within the offices? These budget cuts are very sensitive in this particular issue, in this particular season, Honorable Speaker. When you were listening to the different departmental committees or different departmental bodies in government and ministries, you would see, looking at the faces of the people presenting and seeking to have their budget cut reinstated, you would wonder, and we were tempted to ask them, where do you want government to raise money from? Because it is in this house, Honorable Speaker, that we pushed for, we had differences in regard to pushing for the finance bill. We had what the public said about the finance bill that was to raise a certain amount of money. And this had to go down and flow down to the budget cuts. But you will get some departments, Honorable Speaker, approaching us as they were when they appeared before different committees, and I'm sure even the chair budget can confirm. You saw people appearing there with very weak faces saying, how do you want us to operate? It is now about time that within this year, we cut everything, like what the budget has, the appropriation committee has done. It wasn't very easy, I know, because you look at this, you realize it's important. You look at another vote, you realize it's also very important. Looking at the recruitment of the JSS teachers, looking at the way our police officers, Honorable Speaker, were getting overwhelmed by the protesters the other day, that really displayed the fact that maybe we needed some more manpower in as much as such is concerned in that security sector. Looking at the challenges in schools, Honorable Speaker, where we need new classrooms in JSS, and I really think the budget committee has also some element of explanation to make on the budget cuts on education, because I think 12 billion, or rather 10 billion, is a little too high in terms of cut. Maybe we ought to have, challenged one area of cuts and put more need on education because of the need that is required on the school. So, Honorable Speaker, these challenging times requires that people tighten their belts, because it is not easy to live normally in abnormal times. Even in this house, Honorable Speaker, there are things that will be affected. We are not going to have foreign travels as much. Our staff members that had to, they needed a bit of some pay rise will also be affected. And this must go out in the public so that people get to know that members of parliament are also affected, because there is a perception out there that members of parliament live large and you need to cut their salaries. Please confirm to them that we are now also affected. It is not only the members of the public or of the other ministries that have been affected. Even members of parliament have been affected, from their staffing to their operations, and we have accepted.
Your two colleagues. Thank you. The Honorable Babu Owino, member for...
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Mbakasi.
Thank you so much. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this budget on the following grounds, Madam Speaker: that we need a budget that is based on development, a budget that is not based on or does not look on only the recurrent expenditure as a nation, because, Madam Speaker, we need our children to go to school, we need to employ more teachers, we need to employ more doctors, we need medicine in hospitals, and we need development in different regions. We need industries, we need factories that can provide jobs to our young men and women in this nation. Madam Speaker, we do not need a bloated budget that is favoring patrimonialism. A budget where a cabinet secretary was buying a python belt at 800,000 Kenya shillings and crocodile shoes at 2 million Kenya shillings, and said that they have a weakness for finer things. This budget, as it is, Madam Speaker, is going to cater for the interest of Kenyans, because we must cut our coat according to our size.
I have a point of order. Honorable Babu Owino, I have a point of order from the Honorable Cynthia Muge. What is out of order, Mheshimiwa?
Madam Speaker, I'm just wondering if the Honorable Babu Owino is in order to mention that whatever belt or whatever watch whoever is wearing, Honorable Speaker, was budgeted or was funded by the budget of this country.
Madam Speaker, because before that cabinet secretary became a cabinet secretary...
So what is out of order? On the statement of fact.
statement of fact, Honorable Speaker, and can he prove that that was budgeted for in this budget and in this government's budget?
Yes, Honorable Babu Owino, I would like you to respond to that.
Madam Speaker, we know very well the kind of a lifestyle the cabinet secretary was living before he became a cabinet secretary, and we know how he was dressing. But again, he went on record, and it is a statement of fact, not factoids. Went on record and said that he was in possession of a crocodile belt worth 2 million Kenya shillings, and his salary is not even that amount. So, Madam Speaker, the honorable member here should not defend such acts. As I proceed, Madam Speaker, please do not interrupt. Because
Babu Owino, I would like you to encourage you to be factual because you only have 5 minutes and I know you have a lot to say. Please be factual, be aware of standing order number 87. You may proceed with that in mind.
So, as I proceed with my submission, Madam Speaker, it is very clear if I want to talk about this issue of the debt question, that, Madam Speaker, borrowing in a nation is not wrong, but borrowing to fund recurrent expenditure is wrong, borrowing to sponsor patrimonialism is wrong, borrowing to steal that money in terms of corruption is wrong, and any money borrowed on those lines becomes unproductive debt, which is not beneficial to our nation. Borrowing, as was opined by Franco Modigliani, an Italian-American economist, who said clearly and came up with the theories of consumption, to be precise, life cycle hypothesis, and he came up with the idea of the debt system, that you can borrow what you should enjoy in 70 years to come. You can enjoy it now, borrow and enjoy it now as you repay for it in quantum minute basis. So therefore, Madam Speaker, borrowing is not wrong, but borrowing for corruption is wrong. So I stand to support this budget because the Gen Zs spoke. These Gen Zs, they're in universities. They need the varsity fees to be reduced. These Gen Zs at the same time, Madam Speaker, need to be employed because these are people who have graduated, but there are no jobs. Thank you.
The Honorable Omboko Milemba, member for Emuhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Whereas I have a lot of respect for the Budget Committee and its chair, and for the work it did, despite the fact that we have several challenges that required budget cuts, I would really want the Budget Committee to listen to me carefully. That when you went back to look at the budget which was supposed to be mutilated because of the fact that the finance bill had not gone through, it was very important that we prioritize things which must be achieved. When you are not having enough money in your home, you must go for the necessities. Honorable members, when you look at one of the pages in this budget, you'll look at the Teacher Service Commission budget. So whereas we are celebrating that we have employed all the JSS teachers, which is 18.5 billion Kenya shillings, there was an agreement between the teachers of Kenya and the government of Kenya in what was called the CBA. The CBA was signed and deposited in court sometimes last year. And the government of Kenya paid the teachers half of that CBA, which was about 13 billion. The remaining 13 billion was to be paid in this financial year. When you look at the budget of the Teacher Service Commission, it has been cut on its recurrent expenditure by exactly 10 billion, meaning that all the teachers of Kenya are not going to get their full CBA as had been agreed by the government. Now, the chair budget, if it's anywhere, what you are doing to this country, which is already going through various demonstrations by both the young people and other groups, you are actually going to draw all the 400,000 teachers of Kenya out on the streets because we have allocated those money on roads, possibly, on other things which otherwise would have waited so that we clear with the teachers. The teachers were looking forward for the following 4 things in this particular budget which are not forthcoming. Number 1 was the phase 2 of the CBA, which is costing 13.5 billion Kenya shillings, which has been removed. Number 2 was a medical cover for teachers, which has been in existence and which was 15 billion. And when you look at this again, it has gotten a cut. Number 3 was promotion of teachers, which had been given 1.5 billion, and which again, I can see it's not in the budget. And lastly was, of course, the issue of the employment of the JSS teachers, which we have achieved. Now, what are we doing to our country? Already we are in a mood of riots and demonstrations. And now you want to draw all the teachers on the streets. In fact, the leadership within the budget committee, I wish the chair was here, this is a step of trying to incite the teachers of Kenya to get out of class and go to the streets. The teachers had been patient knowing that their package will be in this budget. And therefore, I want to say that we shall not, and I want to ask you, honorable members, because this will affect you starting next week and the following week. I don't see us going anywhere because it will affect us in our constituencies. We must make an amendment to this budget to include the 13.5 billion for the CBA of the teachers. And the economists are here. I've already talked to them. No, we don't need to borrow because there are places where we can prioritize. Why would we be building a road and not pay teachers? The road can wait for tomorrow, honestly. So let's be very realistic when we shall look at the next step of this particular matter, so that we get 13.5 billion shit for the Kenyan teachers. Otherwise, even those of us who have been enjoying some limelight because of 1 or 2 things, the teachers will be on the streets. Yes, the JSS will be there, but the rest of the 400,000 teachers, I'm telling you, will get on the streets. And this is not what we require at this particular time. The budget chair and his leadership cannot incite the teachers as we see. So members help to revert this so that the teachers get their CBA. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Yes.
The Honorable Mawathe, member for Embakasi South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute in this important bill. That is actually the report, that is the budget 2024-2025. We live in very hard economic times, very challenging times. So as a country, we must learn to live within our means. I am glad that the budget committee has reduced the budget to what is affordable without increasing taxes on the Kenyans. We are glad that the budget committee has been able to include the funds for the absorption and the employment of the JSS teachers countrywide. One of the things that is missing or lacking in this budget is the funds for the feeding program for the kids in the slum areas, school feeding program. We've noticed that there is school feeding program funds for the Asal area, but I can assure you, most of the students in the slum areas, most of the parents are actually poorer than the people that are living in the Asal areas. So, Mr. Chairman of the budget committee, we urge you together with your committee that the next budget we must include the budget for feeding program for the slum areas. Also, there is need to put more funds for additional classes in Nairobi schools. And the reason is when people graduate or finish their school, they come to look for employment in Nairobi. They get married in Nairobi. They get the kids in Nairobi. The population for Nairobi has grown from what was about maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 2.5 million people to about 3.5. It was 5.5 during the last election. I am sure it will be about 7 million people. And yet, the number of the size of land is not growing, and the demand for schools is increasing every year. With those few, I do support. Thank you.